Hey friends, welcome back to Spiritual Conversation. So, I recently had an insight that just crystallized, clarified this great aha about this fundamental difference, a really root starting point of different perspectives. And this might be obvious to you, especially depending on what sources of narrative and news you are familiar with or who your milieu is. But it was quite eye-opening for me. Like it was like, I hadn't understood this, and no wonder there's such big differences of opinion. So the things that are argued about on the surface are like the tip of the iceberg with this deep fundamental difference at the bottom. And all of that tip of the iceberg stuff is really meaningless, and you're like, why doesn't this person understand my perspective? And it's because deep down, totally different view about the world. And again, you might already be very familiar with this difference. I was not. I want to share with you what it is and how it came about. So, I've been a guest MC on the Created in the Image of God podcast recently with Wade Franson, Soup Publishing. And it's exploring the role of religion in society, and we have guests that we bring on, and we talk about different big picture and socially relevant topics. And we had someone voicing contention in the chat, and this is something that the host welcomes. I say that with some hesitation because that's not the purpose, but he's very willing to play ball when it happens. And so our guest was talking about, I think it was the trans movement and specifically it affecting children and specifically the states where teachers are allowed to hide a transitioning process from parents. And the dangers of that and how something so impactful could be happening to a kid and somehow it's sanctioned that the parents don't need to know about it, and impactful not only changing every aspect of how they lead in the world, but also potentially, I mean, not potentially, depends how far they go with it, changing, if not damaging, their physical body and their fertility and so forth. So the contentious comment was from someone who'd been like sort of interjecting for a while, and they said something very flippant. They said something like, oh, well, conservative people are just so concerned about their children being breeders. And I saw their perspective. I understood this insinuation that to procreate and to be concerned about that capacity is like old fashioned and animal and greedy and barbaric and selfish. And I think the root of that philosophy, as far as I understand, is environmentalism, right? Being a concern for resources in the world and thinking that humans are bad and we're a blight, and that we need to minimize how many of us there are to take care of resources on the planet. Whole other discussion, all right? I'm going to just talk about procreation in terms of family and family being the nucleus of society. Now, to speak about that difference, right, I realize, oh my gosh, when we say for whatever number of reasons that there is an attack on family, when we say, hey, this transgender thing is not something to be taken lightly because it can damage people's fertility in the future. And even it illuminated why there's one reason why there is such like ravenous support and protests and all that for the pro-abortion movement. Like it all sort of came together like, wow, we're not even on the same island here, because, to me, I would think no matter what your sort of social ideology, you would care about this pretty much magical, God-given capacity that all living forms and humans have to bring forth a life into this world if we want to. And that does seem like something that you would not want to deprive your 8-year-old of one day being able to do if as an adult they wanted to do that, right? But if you think that breeding is this selfish, ridiculous, resource consuming, arrogant, my DNA is so important type of thing, then you're not going to care about that. And again, it goes with other issues too, like the pro-choice versus pro-life movement and all that. And so I just wanted to speak about the implications of that. First, my aha that there's this fundamental difference that I hadn't even realized, and apparently is pretty prevalent. I'm guessing that this is something that is very much touted in media outlets, you know? And I just hadn't realized that because of the world that I live in, I suppose. But, you know, let's take the environmental argument, which is and should be basically a desire to make the world a better place, right? To go out and be a mover and shaker to make the world a better place. And be that as it may, my faith, the Baha'i faith, says that family is the nucleus of society. So however we go out and make the world a better place, the world is made a better place not by, you know, pitchfork protests and radicalism. It's the radical movement of living a wholesome life. Living a life where your thoughts and your actions are as aligned with God as possible. And the only way to do that, I mean, there's no step by step, and I'm not here to preach to you, but in general, it's a matter of devotion and prayer and reading the word, and then how you live your life, and like praying to be aligned with this. But the world is made better by healed people who are doing their best to align with God and within the construct of a family. And then you go out into the world and you do things and you move, but the core of it is family. And so I feel like this mocking of this capacity to breed, on the one hand, a child who's fearfully and wonderfully made, you know, a newborn is such an image of God and the unknowable, right? It's such a reminder, it's this physical proof of just the magic of creation. So you kind of like see God's face in newborns in that capacity. So it's an attack on that. And then family being the nucleus of society. And again, the Baha'i faith, and I share this as a matter of interest. If you are a Baha'i, this is highly relevant to you, and I hope you get a lot out of this. If you're not a Baha'i, I hope you find it interesting, but I'm not preaching to anyone who doesn't align with my views, okay? I'm just sharing them. But in the Baha'i faith, marriage is highly encouraged. And not only that, the only legitimate form of sexual expression is within marriage. And it is undeniable that you know, drive, that sexual drive is a deep and integral and powerful force in the human being. So that force that is in us, the only legitimate expression of that is within marriage. And then it goes so far to say that the purpose of marriage is to bring forth a life, a soul that will make mention of God. The purpose of marriage is to procreate and to have children. And that it transcends the personal, you know, needs and desires of the individual. It is for this purpose. And the Baha'i writings also go so far as to say that it is up to the individual to decide if they want to have a family life or if they want to be celibate. It literally, those are your options from this perspective. And so again, it comes back to this idea of breeding being, just this bestial, dumb, egoic thing. It's not. It is what the sacred writings tell us to do, and that powerful sexual impulse is meant to draw people into marriage, and the purpose of marriage ultimately is to have kids and to have family. And then from the social perspective, the family unit as a healthy and unified core force is the nucleus of a society. And when we don't value this structure, this capacity between men and women, and then the structure of the family, then it is a lack of support for existent families and future families. So people, within families are sort of mocked by society. Women shamed for cutting back on some of their professional capacity to be able to give to the home. Like, that's seen as backward and unfortunate, and wow, you're not a fully actualized person. And men have their own pressures as well. They're mocked for monogamy or, different things, not having the freedom that they had in their younger life. And then, so instead of supporting families, which are the nucleus of society, this is how we have this kind of world we're trying to build, right? And again, I'm not trying to make a contradiction between practical action to, help mitigate soil erosion or whatever environmental concerns we have, or engaging in crafts or professions that benefit the world, or being of service. We should do that. But we don't go out and do it at the expense of our own inner life and our own family life. Because the inner life and then the family life, that is where we come from, a place of strength. And all of that starts with our relationship with God. But then this lack of respect and reverence and cherishing of how important the family is, then not only do we make it harder for marriages and families to be healthy and whole and to stay together, we also make it harder for them to even start, because we discourage and we shame young men and women from having that be a priority. So thus, a lack of families, a lack of nucleus of society, right? A fractured nucleus, nuclei. And then we have the results that we have today, where there is just increased chaos and confusion. So in summation, I've shared my aha. Again, maybe you already knew that, but I just want to encourage people not to be in that camp of poo-pooing actual unity. Like, families represent a unity and a practice in unity, where different parts make up a unit and make up a whole. So be supportive of families. If you are in a family, and everyone is in a family, but if you have a traditional nuclear family, or you are an auntie or something, be supportive of that as you can, and honor that sacred role that you have. You are an important part of that structure, that unit. And when the holiday season, maybe you'll have some more time, just any way that you can support families, even if it's what you say, and not choose just trendy talking points over this spiritual reality that we've been given. And just as a little caveat, I will mention, because some of you might be thinking it, the Baha'i writings do encourage that you should be mindful of educating your children, and you should only have the children that you can afford to care for and educate. So that has a whole aspect of temperance, if you will, with it. But yeah, so I'd like to support you in your family efforts and your roles in that, and just encourage you not to be one of those ungodly dissenters in the world who think that they're on the side of righteousness because they think it's an environmental issue. And again, I think that's a whole other discussion. And the sacred writings say to go forth and multiply. And also, it comes with a sort of sheen of erudition or metropolitan sophistication. And it's really not that. It's just an ideology that deprives people of enjoying family and deprives society of having a strong core and structure so that we can build that just and prosperous world that we all want to be in. All right, my friends, I would love your thoughts on this, so feel free to comment. You can email me. I will also be having a spiritual conversation live, which is our Zoom discussion group on December 17th. That's a Saturday. It'll be in the late morning. If you would like to be involved in that, please email me and I will send you the login information for that. I wish you a wonderful holiday season and invite you to like and subscribe. Feel free to check out my Patreon and links below. Oh, I forgot to pitch my book. Well, you'll have to watch my world order for that. And until next time, my friends, I wish you the best for playing your unique part in making this world a better place. I will catch you next time. Bye-bye.